Just warning you, the title of this video should be, "It's good, but..." Mandy is a 2018 action horror movie directed by Panos Cosmatos, written by 4 different people, and starring Nicolas Cage. Its plot follows a man in 1983 as he seeks brutal revenge on an evil hippie cult and their demon biker henchmen after they destroyed his life and his love, Mandy. Mandy clearly carries influences from what I believe is 70s and 80s movies. Unfortunately, I don't know enough about the style and cinema it's referencing to talk about it. What I can say is that it feels almost like Tarantino directed a horror movie. It's grotesque yet ethereal. It's dark yet colorful. It's heartbreaking yet entertaining. It's creative yet old school. It's also slow, but probably worth watching at least once. Not to mention, acid plays a big role in the plot and the story. In fact, the whole movie feels like an acid trip. I can't say more without spoiling, so let's grade this thing. The cinematography gives you a lot to look at. It's dark, yet often has certain images that are color corrected to be one solid color. It also incorporates a lot of really interesting titles and animation. On one hand, I really loved how beautiful some shots were, but I also dislike how some scenes are dark to the point of being distorted. If I had written this review immediately after watching Mandy, I may have been more negative. Instead, a week has gone by, and all I remember is the most beautiful images from the movie. So I'm giving a 1.5 for cinematography. The acting in Mandy is almost entirely the responsibility of Cage, since the other actors are very stoic. Cage is incredibly emotional, and his often wild acting makes his character, Red Miller, come to life. You care for him and the movie because of Nicolas Cage. The music by Johan Johansson is hugely important to the movie, and is another aspect that harks back to the 70s and 80s. The music feels very John Carpenter. In fact, if you go to YouTube Music or Apple Music and start an automated John Carpenter station, songs from this soundtrack will play alongside Carpenter's. The score is synth-heavy, but also infuses psychedelic rock and growling guitars. It's also important to note that Mandy is dedicated to Johan Johansson, as this was one of his last scores before he died in 2018. If I was nitpicking, I'd say I don't like the overly dark mood of the score, or the movie for that matter. But I don't dislike the darkness enough to take points away. 3 favorite tracks are easy to pick from the soundtrack. First is Mandy's love theme. The track is the most ethereal and adds a lot of heart and sensitivity to Mandy. Next is Forging the Beast. This is the gearing up for action track that is both epic and foreboding. Finally is, in my opinion, the best track on the soundtrack, Children of the New Dawn. This theme for the evil hippie cult is the most John Carpenter the soundtrack gets. If you like that style of music like I do, this should be the first track you check out. Critics responded to the movie with almost unanimous praise. The Rotten Tomatoes critics consensus reads, "Mandy's gonzo violence is fueled by a gripping performance by Nicolas Cage and anchored with palpable emotion conveyed between his volcanic outbursts." 91%. A positive review by Kalishi, last name I'm not going to try to pronounce, of Confession from a Geek Mind reads, "No matter what side of the cinematic spectrum you sit on, Mandy needs to be seen to be believed." A negative review by super reviewer Dan M reads, "An avant-garde David Lynchian film, Mandy is an incoherent mess. There's really no story, just a vague impression of a revenge tale." I include this because, again, my initial thought when the credits rolled was, that sucked. But in the weeks since watching Mandy, the best parts have been what stuck with me. This leads me into my next point of, does the movie appeal to audiences in a traditional sense? I think not. My initial negative reaction was mostly due to the slow pace and psychedelic nature of the movie, which would likely be off-putting to most audiences. However, if you like 80s horror, revenge movies, and/or LSD, this movie may be for you. The story, to me, is the weakest point. It aims to tell a revenge story, and it does so. However, revenge plots are often unsatisfying to me. Even if revenge is achieved, the main character usually doesn't gain anything other than more trauma. I liked that the movie successfully taps into primal nature. I felt bad for Cage's character, and I wanted to see the bad guys get what they deserved at his hand. I dislike that revenge is simply revenge. Final score, 7.91 out of 10. I would definitely recommend this movie to fans of 80s horror, gore fests, revenge plots, and anything psychedelic. As of now, this is a Shudder exclusive, which means you can buy it on several different streaming services, but if you have a Shudder account, it's included with your membership. Before I wrap up, I'd like to cover some final thoughts and spoilers. If you don't want to hear spoilers, thank you for listening or watching to this point. I hope you enjoyed it. My remaining Mandy review will also contain spoilers for The Revenant and Kill Bill. That's The Revenant and Kill Bill. You've been warned. I ended my discussion on the story by saying that I dislike when the characters gain nothing from revenge but revenge itself. It's satisfying in a primal way, but also somewhat grotesque and depressing. Before this movie ended, I thought to myself, this is going to end like The Revenant. He's going to get his revenge, but still be left with nothing but trauma and the memory of what he lost to move forward with. Perhaps avenging his loved ones will get their spirits peace, and give his spirit enough peace to move forward. Perhaps not. Maybe it's the perfect revenge plot ending, but it's also open-ended and sad. Mandy ends with Red Miller driving off into an LSD-tinged horizon as he imagines Mandy sitting next to him. The suggestion is that revenge may have cost him his sanity. Again, maybe it's perfect. But I can't help but compare it to what is, in my mind, the best revenge plot ever. Quentin Tarantino's Kill Bill. Final warning, I'm about to spoil the ending of Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2. At the end of Kill Bill, the main character gains a lot from her blood-soaked revenge. She gets a fair fight with all those who wronged her, gains closure on one of the most important relationships of her life, gets her daughter back, and I'd argue her life back. Every remnant of her 2 past lives is gone, except the one piece that meant the most to her. The movie ends with her sobbing in a bathroom, mumbling, "Thank you," over and over again, then sitting on the bed with her daughter to watch cartoons. It's bittersweet, but it's still sweet. Definitely sweeter than gaining nothing from revenge but revenge. To everyone out there, thank you for listening or watching. I hope you enjoyed the review, and be sure to let me know what movie we should talk about next.